Welcome to a brand new series in which we will go over every single NFL game of the week. This week we'll start with week 1 as we will progress each week as the season goes on. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So without further ado, let's get straight into this one. The first game of the week that we will cover is the season opener on Thursday night between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs, in which the Chiefs defeated the Ravens 27-20, in which Isaiah Likely just missed the back of the end zone with just a couple inches of his toes. Patrick Mahomes threw for 291 yards, was 20 out of 28, had one touchdown and one interception. Lamar Jackson had 273 yards, 26 out of 41 attempts, and one touchdown, as he had 16 rushes for 122 yards. The game was pretty close, as heading into halftime the score was 13-10 with the Chiefs in the lead. The Chiefs then increased their lead to 10 points in the fourth quarter, as Baltimore had one drive to try and tie the game at the end and just missed out when Isaiah Likely could not make that touchdown reception. The Chiefs won the game at Arrowhead and start the season 1-0. The second game of the week was on a Friday night in Brazil, in which the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Green Bay Packers 34-29. In the final minutes of the fourth quarter, Jordan Love got injured on the play and looks to be sidelined for a minimum of a couple weeks, as he got twisted up in a very gnarly way. Saquon Barkley popped off in this game, scoring 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, and 1 receiving touchdown on the night, as fantasy owners must have been happy with that production. The game was pretty tight all game long, and the Eagles pulled out the victory with a 5-point lead. The Eagles take a 1-0 record heading into week 2. Here on Sunday morning, we have a conference matchup between the NFC Atlanta Falcons and the AFC Pittsburgh Steelers, in which the Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Falcons 18-10. Justin Fields stepped in as quarterback for the injured Russell Wilson, as he was 17 for 23 for 133 yards, and Kirk Cousins had 16 out of 26 attempts for 155 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. There were a lot of field goals kicked in this game, as Chris Boswell for the Steelers went 6 for 6, and the game was close the entire time, as the biggest lead was the final score of 8 points, and the Steelers cruise into week 2 with a 1-0 record. The next matchup was between the Buffalo Bills and the Arizona Cardinals, in which the Bills defeated the Cardinals 34-28. Josh Allen went 18 out of 23 attempts for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kyler Murray went 21 out of 31 for 162 yards and 1 touchdown. The game was pretty close at halftime, as the score was 17-10 with Arizona in the lead, with the Bills quickly answered back in the second half with a quick touchdown to tie it up. Then the Bills led the rest of the game, as they take a 1-0 record heading into week 2. Next was Caleb Williams' first game in the NFL, as he finished 14 for 29 for 93 yards, and Will Levis had 19 out of 32 attempts for 127 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, as the Bears defeated the Titans 24-17. Heading into halftime, the Titans led the Bears 17-3, but in the second half, the Bears defense came alive, as they had a blocked punt touchdown, a fumble recovery, as well as an interception touchdown, as we saw Will Levis throw a meme-worthy pick in which he was on his knees with his hands on his helmet. The Bears defense was the MVP of the game, as Caleb Williams gets his first win in his debut, and the Bears take a 1-0 record heading into Week 2. Next matchup was between the Cincinnati Bengals and the New England Patriots, in which the Patriots defeated the Bengals 16-10. Head coach Jerod Mayo got a win on his debut as a coach. The Patriots led the game the entire time, and it looks like the Bengals are off to another slow start to start off the year. The Patriots upset the Bengals as they take a 1-0 record heading into Week 2. Here in this Week 1 matchup, we have a game between two AFC South divisional opponents, the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans, in which the Texans defeated the Colts 29-27. CJ Stroud had 24 out of 32 attempts for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns, as Anthony Richardson had 9 completions for 19 attempts with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. The game had been a 1-possession game up until the third quarter, in which the Texans took a 2-possession lead, in which the fourth quarter ended up with a shootout in which both teams exchanged touchdowns after touchdowns, in which the Texans defeated and came out on top with a 29-27 victory, as the Texans take a 1-0 record to start off the year. We have a matchup between the Dolphins and the Jaguars, in which the Dolphins won 20-17. Tua Tagovailoa had 23 out of 37 attempts for 338 yards and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence had 12 out of 21 attempts for 162 yards and a touchdown. Both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had 130 and 109 yards respectively, as they tore it up in the air. The Jaguars had a 10-point lead heading into halftime. As the Dolphins tied up the game in the fourth quarter, they were able to set up for a last-second field goal victory by Jason Sanders for 52 yards, as the Dolphins cruise to a 1-0 record to start off the year. We have another divisional matchup between two NFC South teams, the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers, in which the Saints demolished the Panthers 47-10. Derek Carr threw 19 out of 23 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, which allowed the backup Jake Haener to get a drive at the end. We also had Bryce Young, who threw for 13 out of 30 attempts, 162 yards, and 2 interceptions, in which Andy Dalton also played the last drive. The Saints created a huge lead from the get-go and ended up at halftime with a 30-3 lead over the Panthers, and just increased the lead to 47 in the fourth quarter, and Carolina was able to get 1 touchdown in the second half, and we ended the score with 47-10 as the Saints roll on to Week 2 with a 1-0 record, and Carolina has lots of work to do. Next, we have a NFC matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. Sam Darnold started for the Vikings as he went 19 for 24 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interceptions. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, went 22 for 42 for 186 yards and had 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The Giants scored the first points of the game with a field goal, but heading into halftime, Minnesota had a 14-3 lead and just increased it starting in the third quarter with a pick 6 on Daniel Jones, and that ended up with the Vikings beating the Giants 28-6 as they have a 1-0 record to start off the year. In the next game, we have another divisional game between two AFC West opponents, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders, in which the Chargers defeated the Raiders 22-10. Gardner Minshew went 25 for 33 for 257 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Justin Herbert went 17 for 26 for 144 yards and a touchdown, but the story of the game was J.K. Dobbins, who had 10 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown. Both offenses struggled in the first half as the score was 7-6 with the Raiders in the lead. The Chargers quickly scored a field goal to start off the second half and just increased their lead very slowly, but shut down the game in the fourth quarter with 3:40 left when they increased their lead to 12. The Chargers took a 1-0 record to start off the year as Harbaugh starts off with a victory in his Chargers tenure. Next, we have a game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos in which the Seahawks defeated the Broncos 26-20. This was the first game for rookie Bo Nix, who had 26 out of 42 attempts, 438 yards, and 2 interceptions. Geno Smith went 18 for 25, 471 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Kenneth Walker had 103 yards on the game. Denver scored the first points of the game, taking a 3-0 lead. Denver got a safety in the second quarter as they led 5-3 over the Seahawks, and heading into halftime, the Seahawks led 13-9. The Seahawks kept increasing their point total in the second half as the Broncos only scored a touchdown in the late fourth quarter when it was a 6-point game. The game ended when the Seahawks were able to run down the clock as they get a 1-0 record to start off the year under rookie head coach Mike Macdonald. In this matchup, we had the Cleveland Browns take on the Dallas Cowboys, in which the Cowboys defeated the Browns 33-17. Dak Prescott threw 19 for 32, 479 yards, and a touchdown. Deshaun Watson went 24 for 45, 469 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Cleveland scored the first points of the game with a field goal, but heading into halftime, the Dallas Cowboys kept scoring and had a 22-3 lead heading into the second half and to start off the third quarter. The Seahawks had a punt return for a touchdown and just kept increasing their lead until the Browns could not catch up. The final score was 33-17 as the Cowboys get a 1-0 record to start off the year. Here in this next game, we have a matchup between the Washington Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was rookie Jaden Daniels' first game in the NFL as he threw 17 for 24 attempts, 184 yards with no touchdowns and no interceptions. Baker Mayfield went 24 for 30 for 289 yards and threw for 4 touchdowns on the day. The Buccaneers scored the first points of the game with a field goal and led 16-7 heading into halftime, in which they scored a touchdown quickly in the second half and just kept on scoring in a way that Washington's offense could not catch up, and the Buccaneers won the game 37-20 as they start off the year 1-0. Here on Sunday Night Football, we have a rematch of last year's playoff game, and it was the battle of the former teams for both quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford threw 34 for 49 for 317 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, as Jared Goff threw 18 for 28 for 217 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. David Montgomery had 91 yards, and Jameson Williams had 121 yards receiving in that game. Cooper Kupp had 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua also went out of the game injured. The game was pretty close the entire time as we headed into halftime. The Lions had a 7-point lead over the Rams 10-3. The Lions increased their lead to 14 in the third quarter, but the Rams quickly answered back and kept the game close and tied the game 20-20 at the end of regulation. Heading into overtime, the Lions won the coin toss and decided to keep the ball, and it seemed like the Rams defense was super tired and Dan Campbell was going to use the grit and pound the rock and keep the defense on their toes as they muscled their way into the end zone to seal the game. That was David Montgomery with the game-ending touchdown right there as the Lions take a 1-0 record to start off the year. The final game of the week was Monday Night Football between the 49ers and the Jets, in which the 49ers defeated the Jets 39-19. Aaron Rodgers went 31 for 21 for 167 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Brock Purdy went 19 for 29 with 231 yards, and Jordan Mason was a phenom as he had 147 yards and a touchdown. The 49ers had a 16-7 lead over the Jets in the half and kept scoring with field goals as Jake Moody went 6 for 6. And heading into the second half, the 49ers kept scoring and Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense could not catch up at Levi's Stadium as the 49ers defeated the Jets 32-19. As Kyle Shanahan takes a 1-0 record to start off the season against his former assistant coach Robert Saleh. That recaps every single game in the NFL for week 1. Let me know in the comments below what are your predictions for the week 3 matchups, as that will be the next slate of games once this video goes live. We are planning to do a week 2 in the next coming days and are looking to put out a week 3 on Tuesday right after the final game of the week on Monday night. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you're a fan of the NFL and college football, stay tuned as we'll be covering both all season long. Appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.